Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name's Shane Butt, I'll be your host for today, and we're talking about how we've used our Pims Workflow product to help companies with some of the challenges that they typically have within the project controls organization, and also obviously by default projects. So thank you for joining us, and let's get started. So hopefully you're hearing us loud and clear. You have two options in terms of picking up the audio. You can either use your computer, microphone and speakers, or you can use your telephone. And you can see the little picture there. Use those radio buttons at the top left to swap between one or the other if you need to. If you need to go to the telephone, it'll give you instructions on the phone number to dial in with. At any time during today, you can ask a question. Just type it in that little message box you can see down the bottom there where it says enter a question for staff. Type that in. We'll have one of our experts try and address that if possible during the webinar, and they'll reply back to you, and we'll also do a recap at the end of the questions that came in. Today's agenda: I'll introduce the team that's involved. I'll give you a quick overview and background on our company, Omega. The focus of today really is going to be how a request from a client, BP, turned into the evolution of a whole product being Pims Workflow for us, and that life cycle of that evolution and what's going to be happening in the future. We'll obviously be demoing the product and talking about how we address some of their challenges and what the solution looks like. We'll recap on how the solution addressed BP's queries and concerns, and also how they can help you, and we'll come back and address the questions and answers. So today we have three Omega staff involved. Myself, Shane Butt. I've been with the company for 12 years. I've implemented systems for clients around the world, and I'm the VP of Enterprise Systems. Our special presenter today is Natalia Urquiaga. She previously spent a few years at BP and was heavily involved, in fact, in the Pims Workflow system there. She was involved in support, training, rollout, implementation, suggestions for improvements, etc. So we're really glad to have her with us today, and she can share her first-hand knowledge and experience. And behind the scenes we have Nathan Lalonde. He's one of our department managers, has been heavily involved in implementing Pims Workflow for customers, and Nathan's also been with the company for 12 years. So that's our team for today. Now, to give you a bit of background on the company, for those of you that don't know us too well, we're a Norwegian headquartered and founded company. We've been going since the early 1990s. And since the very beginning, we focused on helping companies execute capital projects better. And we do this through two key avenues. We have a consulting business where we provide expert consultants, and they might be in document control, cost control, HSE, quality, providing those consultants to the experts to fill in gaps in terms of knowledge and experience. And we also have a substantial software suite that's focused on project execution as well, and that's our Pims product range. Out of interest, that picture on the right you see is our headquarters in Norway, located on a beautiful Norwegian fjord. Now, we alluded to our Pims product range. Here's the list of products we have today. It continues to evolve. You see document control, cost control, and completion management. They've been covered in previous webinars this year already, as well as HSE. But today's focus is going to be on the Pims Workflow product. And people often ask me, what's special about Omega and Pims software? And the answer is simple. We do whatever is needed to make our software your software. So I'm going to take you through a bit of the history of the relationship with BP. So they contacted us over 10 years ago, and they were working on a particular project that had global users involved in that. That particular project used a paper-based management of change process. And I think we can all today appreciate the sort of challenges that that would have provided. It was time-consuming and slow to get decisions made on whether to proceed with this MOC or not, because the piece of paper would move from one person to another. They're not always in the same building, not always in the same country even. There was no visibility of where the particular MOC request was at any stage. You didn't know who it was with. I mean, the person who currently had it knew exactly where it was, and the previous person knew who they gave it to, but there was no visibility and no easy way of controlling the time frame that an MOC got processed in. Also, you had the challenge that, a piece of paper gets delivered to somebody's office and they're not in the office. They might be out for the day, on vacation, they might be on travel. So you had all of those issues contributing to the fact that their MOC process was nowhere near as efficient and as smooth as they would have liked it to have been. So we put some of our Omega Pims experts on the job with BP and started discussing how might we address this and help them out. And ultimately, we created a web-based workflow tool that addressed their MOC process. And it was focused initially, the engagement, on solving the request for that particular project. So how could we use that to help them out? The system gave them great visibility of all MOCs because they're all stored in one place. You can easily go and see the status of each MOC, where it's at, whose hands it's been through, who's approved it, what comments they've added, etc. So they now had full visibility, traceability, and auditability of each MOC. To make sure it went smoothly through the different people it needed to, at each step when a new person needed to be involved, the system would automatically send them an email letting them know which MOC it was, how to get to it. There was a link in there straight to the MOC in the system, and what they needed to do. We had delegations set up so that in those cases where people were out of the office, traveling, on vacation, etc., that they could delegate their access rights to somebody else, so MOCs no longer got stuck just waiting for somebody to return. So this was very successful. We now had delivered an MOC solution that addressed the needs of this particular project. And in fact, BP asked us to expand on the relationship and the solution, and we got a request to develop other workflow solutions for different modules, different processes that they had, for instance, technical queries. So we did that. So now the project had multiple workflow solutions for their needs. And we now started to look with BP at making it a more globally available tool. So we did some redevelopment work and some more adjustments with them, and it was released by their global project organization in 2010, and they named the system PMCS, which stands for Project Management Control System. We call it within Omega Pims Workflow. Now, not only did BP want to use more modules and use it on all projects, but they also wanted Omega to keep developing the product. So they requested that we in fact turn it into a project and take it to market. And we were obviously very happy with that request and did so. And in 2011, Pims Workflow was released to the market. And we have been implementing Pims Workflow solutions for companies since that date. And the reason BP wanted that, in fact, was so that other customers would feed into the system ideas, suggestions, technology advancements would happen, and they could later on benefit from those ideas and suggestions and improvements to the product. So it was very innovative thinking on the behalf of BP. Today it's been so successful within BP that we have it being used on all major projects throughout the world for BP, and they have over 6,000 users and more than 130 current projects using PMCS or Pims Workflow. So now I'm going to hand over to Natalia, who, as I said, spent time within BP as a PMCS for them super user and involved in support, training, helping roll out the system, as well as providing feedback to Omega on how to improve the product for BP's use.
All right.
So with that, over you go, Natalia.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Shane. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, I started working at BP as a Pims or PMCS super user in around 2013. It was my job to assist the BP Global Project Organization, or as BP calls it, GPO, with their key task of encouraging and supporting all major projects to adapt and use Pims Workflow as their main tool for managing their project processes. So they believe that to better run a successful project, all departments and team members should communicate with one another and have a clear understanding of what is going on with the project. So certain project risks or deviation requests, they affect schedule, which affect cost. So you need to be aware of that. Some actions need to be taken due to HSE items and meetings. So what best place to manage, report, and store all this information and ensure that everyone is following the same process, but in one tool? Their prior experience from managing MOCs with the tool with ease and transparency led GPO to take Pims to the next level and use it as the tool to link all workflow processes together. Hence, Pims became an integrated tool where all project actions, MOCs, risks, deviation requests were linked together. Depending on the project stage, more modules were added later, but these essentially were the standard ones, the ones that you see on the image to the right. The solution of integrating all these puzzle pieces together kept with BP's vision of having a one team environment and mentality, hence one tool, one team. Now, a few of the main flexible and efficient features that attracted BP to Pims was, for example, that it allowed for both BP and contractors to access project items or project registers with appropriate levels of confidentiality. So only certain users with specific confidentiality levels were allowed to view certain forms within a register. This also applied within the BP team. A higher confidentiality level was given to leadership for sensitive items. This was all set up and determined by the individual project. Still, all data that was created, closed, etc., was stored all in one spot. Pims has the ability to react to changing circumstances through recycles and revisions of activities. It has the ability to delegate actions and change ownerships for out-of-office situations, for example. There are bulk upload and Excel PDF export capabilities for large quantities of data. Also, project leadership team meetings were run using the KPIs and reports that were generated from the tool to quickly identify progress statuses. So Pims stores and manages all types of data and also keeps an audit log of all updates done within a process. Anything created in Pims or PMCS is stored there for life. All those changes are recorded. So this provides project transparency and an assurance within all projects. Now, a standard form within the workflow tool has essentially 3 phases, whether it be filing in an action, a risk, MOC, etc. However many steps because depending on what you're working with, the first phase is identifying and describing what needs to be done and by whom. Once that info is submitted, an email is then sent, and the process continues to the person or persons responsible for providing the response. And then finally, the workflow will enter an approval stage, and once it's all approved, it will then close out. So every step or stage is recorded and data logged within the system. Nothing created is ever deleted as it is an auditing tool. So, excuse me, that's one of the main features that BP found attractive, is that auditing use of it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the tool to provide you with an overview of what Pims workflow looks like, and to help you, get a feel for the different features. For confidentiality purpose, though, I will not be showing you the BP's PMCS version of the tool, but rather just our standard Pims workflow product. Still, it's essentially the same structure as what BP has. So let's just go dive in. Welcome to Pims workflow. Now, what you see here are modules that I typically work in. I can access corresponding registers through here. So as you can see, I got my action tracking, MOC, lessons learned, etc., and so forth, and I have dashboards listed on the bottom here. So just so you can get a feel, I'm going to go ahead and access a register. So I'll go into action tracking register. Okay. So this view that you have here, you will get that same look and feel throughout all the modules. You have your filters on the left, and then you have your forms listed on the right. You've got some buttons up here where you can add new actions. Here you have a search bar. You can go ahead and search for a specific type of actions, and it will again find that keyword and pull up that form for you. You'll see too, within the individual forms, you can access them by clicking the title. You'll have the sign automatic number, the revision, if it's overdue. For in this case, this one's 5 days overdue. I can see the status, who's the next to sign. Okay. Going back to the left, I have these set filters listed here. Right now I'm looking at the open forms. Again, considering my confidentiality level will determine what is it that I am viewing in this one project register. I can see what is awaiting my signature. So these particular ones are the ones awaiting my signature. So, at the beginning of the day, I want to see what's going on in the project. Is anything waiting on me? I'll go ahead and look at it in here. Is there anything that I need to sign off that's overdue? I can look at it here, right? Or I can just see a standard all forms. Okay. Now, if you keep scrolling down, there's more sections where you can filter down the list. So what I wanted to show you is that from selecting these filters, let's say I want to select a delivery line, for example. These filters are interactive and intelligent. So let's just say I want to see forms that have a delivery line of engineering. Okay, they filtered up, so they're up here. But if you've noticed, and I'll repeat it again, the filter, so the discipline, these are my list of disciplines. When I go ahead and filter for the delivery line, they refresh themselves, so they're showing me the discipline within that engineering delivery line. All right, so essentially it's very easy to go through and walk through the entire register. You can see everything, or you can just focus in what you need to focus. Okay, now for those of you who prefer a spreadsheet type of view, like, okay, this is great, but I'm used to my little Excel spreadsheet look, not a problem. Pims Workflow also has this feature. So you can convert this whole view, and just by clicking this grid view, it will convert all your project actions into rows and columns, as you can see here. Now this is a list of everything. right? You can scroll left and right, and again, you have more detailed information listed, okay? You can access the forms again through here. These columns, you can sort them just by clicking it. So I'm sorting on status right now. So they put all my pending approvals on the top. What I like about this view again is that it color codes my forms. So, oh, the 2 in red, that means they're red. That means that they're overdue. Okay, yellow means it's about to be overdue. Green means it's still good. Okay, I can sort by approvers. I can just type in my name, like, okay, anywhere where I'm the approver, excuse me, and then it will filter through to that. Okay. Now remember in the previous form, in the previous view, I had those specific filters on the left. So up here, when you look at the buttons up here, I have in this drop down the same filters. So again, let's see what's awaiting my signature. Very easy to use. Okay. Now, if at any time you want to export this data, export the data to Excel, I have this reporting feature over here. So in the drop down, I see register. So I'll go ahead and click it, and what it does, again, depending how I filtered it, it'll export that data out to me. As you can see, those are my items, the ones that I have next to sign. So it's very functional on how smoothly it all works out. So now that you have like a good feel of what a typical register looks like, let me show you, let me go into the change management register. So this is the change management register. Looks exactly the same, of course, more data, right? So you got your filters and you got your forms. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and show you what a typical form looks like. Now, again, recall that I'm in the MOC module. So I'm going to show you an MOC form, or management of change if you prefer. So I'll go ahead and pick this one since it's pretty much filled up with good information. The status is open. Okay, so let's go in there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, just so we can back up a bit, I'm going to go ahead and collapse. As you can tell right now, it took me to the appropriate section where the form is opened. But I'm going to go ahead and close these sections for you so you can see the steps that are involved within this form. Okay. Now, because we are creating, or we're viewing a change proposal or MOC form, the nature of it does have multiple steps. In this case, it has 8 steps. That's just the nature of the change. Now, of course, if you're in another module, you'll have a different number of that. But essentially, you get a form, you have your sections. Now, this top piece that you see here is just your overall summary of the form. So you got your title, the status, etc. You can have a good idea where's the form right now just by looking at this right here. Okay. The first section is just a graphical representation of the current workflow steps and the signature processes for you. The second section, so let's go ahead and dive in. Okay. This is the initiate section. Now, if you recall, all the forms have the same phases. You have to initiate, put in your information, and so forth. So this is the phase where the originator will come in. Now, MOC requires a lot of information and it's more complex. So, for example, they need to put in, and they would insert in these text boxes, the solution, the justification. You have some preliminary estimates down here, okay, and you can select like the currency of the cost, etc., etc. You have a place to put attachments and stuff. Now, in an MOC, for those of you familiar with the change process, we do require, when you initiate a change, you are required a sponsor to verify and validate your data. So over here, we do have a section where the originating person selected a sponsor. Okay, so once essentially all that information is inserted, the originating person will go ahead, in this case is a Hans, he will go ahead and submit the form to the next person. Okay, so after that it will go into this section. Now the sponsor, because that is the role that is involved right now, they will receive an email letting them know, hey, it's you're the next assigned on this form. So it will provide the link, and then that individual will be able to click on the link, and then it will go straight to this form, and it will open up to the appropriate section that they need to fill out. Now that's really useful, especially when you got lots of work and you don't need to go into the whole register, etc., etc. You just go straight to the source. Okay. Now as the sponsor, he's verifying the change. He selects the owner, the date, and when he is done with that, that's when the form will go into the next person, which is the owner in this case. Which, if you recall, when I first opened this form, the form automatically went to this stage. That is because this is the section that the form is currently in right now. So as you can see, it's slightly different because the individuals on the top have already signed off, and you can see when they signed off on the side. It's no one can come back and update that unless they raise a revision or so forth. Right now this one's active, so you can see that there are yellow fields in this section. So these are the fields that the owner is required to fill out before he or she can submit the form forward. Okay, now going back to what we were talking about, how the modules Pims workflow links all the modules together, etc. As you can see in this section, we have a part where you can insert pre-approval actions. Okay, so whatever actions I create from this change, this will be stored in my action tracking module register. Okay, and I can access that there, and that opens up a new form. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. So let's say the title of this was emergency generating operating maintenance spare parts. Okay, so let me go back down here now. Before this can be approved, I need to verify if I can even get those spare parts. So let me go ahead and add an action. So this little window will show up here. Okay, so let's say verify that you can obtain the spare parts. Right? We have to know if I can even get the parts before anything. Now this is what I was saying with the confidentiality. It's asking me, okay, great, who can view this form? Okay, so I have a series of selections here. So depending on the sensitivity of the form, the MOC, and the action, I can say, okay, I only want a certain amount of people or this level of people to view this, right? In this case, I don't mind who looks at it, so I'll go ahead and select unclassified. That means everyone can see this action, okay? And then I'll go ahead and select my delivery line, okay? Then I'll go ahead and click OK, and what will happen is that it will open up and create, voila, a brand new form, and this time it's an action tracking form. Let me collapse that for you. You see, it looks just like the other MOC form, just less steps. Okay, so now you can see action, and right now it has its own number, etc. Go back to the MOC form. Okay, so if you recall, I inserted the action here, and right now my action can also be accessed and viewed here in this box. Okay, it's in the proposed status, and the next assign is right there. So you can see how easily they interact with each other. Okay, going forward within the MOC form, We got the same information that was provided to us at the top. So if you recall, go ahead and scroll up to the first section. Okay, so that's my solution, etc. That detail was also found down here in the development stage. Okay, so the owner can come in here and update what he needs to do. Okay, now because we are still developing the MOC, you have to input again if a risk assessment has been performed. See, this is another example how the departments are communicating with each other. Okay, is great. You want to make a change? Is there any risk involved? If there is, you input the details down here. Okay, you can input your cost impact, and also you have another piece here where you can describe your post-approval action plans. So whatever you input here, you get to actually create those actions further on in the process. Okay, scrolling down some more, you have the option of selecting your reviewers and your approvers. Okay, so right now the owner has already selected 1 reviewer and then 2 approvers. Now if you take note in the approver section, they show the sequential order. When you're adding approvers, you can determine if you want them to approve in sequence or in parallel. Okay, so what that does essentially is that it allows for the one who has a sequential number of 1 to be able to actually approve, click that button and approve, and then only then can the second approver approve right after him. Okay, so once all of that development and all that information is in there, only then can the owner go ahead and submit that action. Okay, so again, this also shows you MOC, just that process is a complex process, but using this just makes it very simple. Just put all your information here, all your attachments, etc. Let's go ahead and write a comment, for example. I can say I have checked the procedure, the process, and I'll go ahead and save that comment. And it's date and time stamped here. Everything is found here. So just so you can see, after this section, it shows that the sponsor is going to come in, of course, because anything that the owner does, the sponsor has to verify. So that's another like a transparency type of thing. Then after that stage happens, we have a review section. So you can see the reviewer that was selected on the top will come down here and put his comments if he needs to. Then we got an approval stage. That's when the approvers come in. Then once it's approved, and if it's approved, if you recall that you had the option of inputting any details on post actions, you will add those actions here. So again, you're still communicating with another module. And then finally, close out. Okay? Now, you can see very easy to go through. Okay? Now, what I wanted to bring your attention to was, so while you're going through all this process, right, emails get sent out, etc., you can still see notifications like, oh, I got a notification but accidentally deleted from my inbox or something. You can still view a list of those notifications. So if you see up here, there's a number 5. That means I have I have 5 notifications. It's a little bell on the top of I can see anything notification that pertains to me. Okay, so it's just letting me know, like, oh, hey, you got to pay attention to this, or somebody signed off on your form, etc., etc., etc. And also, we discussed about delegation of authority. Okay, so let's say I'm going on vacation and I need to delegate my forms to another person. So this is good. So if there's something due, I'm not the bottleneck. It's not waiting on me. So I'm not sure if you guys caught that, but I have a button up here that when I click on it, it shows me my out of office delegation feature. Okay, so let's say I'm going to go on vacation next week from Monday all the way to Wednesday. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and assign Nathan as my delegate. So what's going to happen is that he's going to obtain all of my rights, all of my access. So any emails he will that is directed to me, he will get those emails. Okay, and also he can go inside the form, and anywhere that has my name, he can go ahead and sign off. Now the system also realizes or differentiates between the two. So we'll say that I'm the owner, signed off by Nathan at this time. Okay. Another feature, we have a menu here on the side. So it shows you a history of everything that has been going on in the form that you have opened. Right now I'm still in that MOC form. So if at any time the form gets revised, because especially in a change, things are constantly moving. Maybe we need to relook at something. Maybe, you know, this description is not satisfactory. Let's go ahead. I want to bring this back to the sponsor, etc. You can move the workflow up and down, but every time that happens, a new revision gets created. And I can see all of my previous revisions here. I can open them and see them in PDF, print them out, and so forth. And that's a really cool feature. That shows like that auditing perspective of things. Like, oh wait, how did it go from this to this? Oh, okay. So we can also see you have your audit log here. You have your notifications here. Okay, anything to do with that is with this form will be stored here, all the history. Okay. Now, if you recall the action that I created, okay, it's still here. It goes through that same flow. What I told you, you have to initiate the item, go through the response, and then close out. Very simple, very easy to train. Now, what I wanted to show you, now going to a managerial perspective, for example, I'm going to go ahead and show you one of our dashboards. So within the action tracking module, for example, I'm going to go ahead and show you the dashboard for the action tracking. Okay, this is essentially what it looks like. Okay, so you got all your activity going on here. You got your actions by delivery line. I can see what was raised, open, closed, and by phases. Like, okay, what happened in May, what happened in April, etc. This one down here, where I see my top 10 late actions, that's really useful KPIs. When I was working at BP, managers just wanted to see this. They loved this. They actually asked me, they would ask me to export this and print this out for them to put in their slides. And they would go over and say, okay, why is this late, etc. How can we make this better, and so forth. We got actions by discipline. We have by status. And what's another interesting feature, like for example, within this pie chart, it shows that I have 4 pending approvals, items that are pending approval. I can go ahead and select that piece, and it'll bring me to those items that are pending approval. Okay, so very interactive, very smooth, really interactive feature. I really enjoyed working with this tool. Okay. Now that concludes the demonstration. So just to recap, again, the client receives that integrated tool where you have all of those departments and modules talking to one another. They're all linked together, and that helped the projects have a better grasp, manage things better, and be more aware of what is going on within the project. Again, it's that whole one tool, one team, everything is here. I get my KPIs, I input my assignments, my actions, any changes, risks. The risk engineers, they need to make sure that things get approved on time. the probability of the risk happening, and so forth. And each workflow is tuned to fit the processes and procedures. That's another thing that goes back to what Shane was saying. BP has their own, GPO has their own procedures and workflow, and Omega actually adapted, or Pims adapted to what those processes were. So it's very flexible. It's not static. And on that note, Shane, I'm going to pass it on to you, and I hope everyone enjoyed the demonstration.
Thank you very much, Natalia. It was great that you were able to share your personal experiences from your time at BP. Now, just recapping a little, in addition to what Natalia was talking about, the overall Pims workflow solution was great for BP. They were able to use it across all of their projects, all of their major projects, and it expanded its use from just the MOC project process on one initial project to multiple processes for that project to multiple processes across all capital projects. It gave them the consistency that they were looking for. So once an individual was able to, get comfortable with one particular Pims workflow module there, they were easily able to work with all of the other modules. You also had, over time, we added support for mobile devices, for iPhones, for tablets. So that's been added to the system and made available now. And the reality is it delivered for them a much more flexible, easy to use and efficient tool that had full visibility, auditability, they had process assurance, and they had management support and leadership driving this from the beginning. So it was very successful, both within BP and also into the Pims workflow product. So I want to try and take a second or two to now explain what exactly is Pims workflow, because everybody knows what a cost control system is and a document control system is, but people aren't generally in the market for a workflow product. It's a conglomeration of tools to help projects perform more efficiently. So Pims workflow comes with out-of-the-box processes. It's also a toolkit where it can be used to create new processes that your particular project or organization might need. And it is now being heavily integrated with other Pims products. So, recapping there, out of the box, Pims workflow comes with action tracking. You saw Natalia create a new action and you could see how that looked. You saw the management of change module. Now, a key feature with Pims workflow is that it can easily be configured. So for instance, that management of change process had 8 different steps. Your MOC process might be more complex. You might have 10 or 12. That's fine. It can be easily configured to add extra steps, to remove steps. Inside your MOC process, you'll have extra information that's not in the standard product, or we can easily add extra fields and remove fields that aren't necessary for you. So that flexibility and configuration is there in the out-of-the-box products, so you can use the tools, the modules listed there, but have them adapted easily to your requirements. But Pims workflow is also a toolkit to create new process solutions. So these are some that current clients have been working with: timesheet reports, verification of purchase orders, application for payments, and variation processing straight into things like the Pims cost product. So we've been tying the Pims workflow product more and more into our other products. So Pims cost, Pims completion management, Pims document control. And in fact, the evolution of Pims workflow from that original request 10 years ago from BP, where they wanted a solution for one particular process, It evolved into a solution for multiple processes for that project. It was then used across multiple projects. They requested us to turn it into a product that others would use and contribute to, so the product would continue to evolve. BP, in fact, used it for interface management, but that became such a big product in its own right that we've turned Pims interface management into a completely separate product, but it looks and feels like the Pims workflow product. It has that same engine driving it. And in fact, Pims interface management is going to be the topic of our next webinar in June. So it's now time to hand over to Nathan, who's been fielding questions in the background. So we're going to bring Nathan in and get his input on some of the questions. We thank you for them, and then after the Q&A session, we'll do a recap on what's coming and forward-looking on the future, next webinar, etc.
All right, thank you, Shane. So we've got several questions that have come in, so I'll go through and kind of address them one by one. One of the questions is, once the team's defined and responsible roles are set within the system, how easy is it to go in and change access to the system, to the different workflows, change who's doing what signature roles, and modify people who are fulfilling different roles? It's pretty straightforward and something that your project administrator can do. So once the system is set up, you can go in there and add additional people into the different workflow roles for signing. You can easily change those and also change the signing process as well. So if you needed additional roles to be signing on a certain step, that's something that can be easily configured in the tool. Had another question: how easy does it tie to HR or just the team? And so from that, I'm guessing you're asking, is there a way to easily onboard people into the system based on like your Active Directory or some method like that? And the answer is yes. We can tie into your company's Active Directory. So we have a method of importing users in from Active Directory, and you can do quick onboarding that way. Next question. The approval process routing, can that be modified to follow certain, to allow certain approvers first, and then see if I'm reading this right, but basically I think he's asking, can you assign certain approvers to go first and then other approvers to come in after that based on role or based on some other criteria? And the answer for that is, again, yes. We can split up the approvers per step, and we could say here's a batch of approvers that we want to sign off in parallel, and they should go first, and then after their approval is done and signed off, then like say a project manager would come in on that step and do the final approval. So that's stuff that we have the ability to easily configure. All that can be configured by a system administrator, somebody that you designate on your project team. Next question was, can I delegate a pre-approval action to another person? And the answer there again is yes, you can delegate your actions out to other people. So if you want somebody to sign off for you or to handle a certain workflow item for you, you can go in and use the delegation tools that are available to have somebody fill in for you on a specific day or time or for a specific period. Another question on out-of-office delegation. Can the delegated party approve items due beyond the time of return, or can you only approve items during your absence? And the answer there is once the period of delegation is completed, your ability to sign for the person that initially delegated you in. So if you delegated your rights out to Bob until Friday, Bob can sign for you on Friday, but on Saturday, Bob can no longer sign for you, and that delegation stops. The last question I see in here is this tool implemented somewhere else or just within BP? It is implemented in multiple clients. I'm currently doing an implementation for a very large owner-operator company. And I've also done several other installations of the tool last year. Other departments are also installing it with other clients. So it is being used globally at the moment. Here in the U.S. and Australia and Europe, it's being used by a lot more than just BP. So it's being fully utilized by our clients. Let's see. Any other questions? Can new workflows be added to the system? Answer to that one is yes. New workflows can be added. So if there are 6 of them that kind of come out of the box. Those 6 are action tracking, lessons learned, management of change, non-conformance, queries, and deviation requests. And if you find that you need another workflow process within your company, those can be done by a Pims developer and implemented into your instance. It looks like all the questions that we've got, Shane.
Excellent. Thank you, Nathan, for your input and for sitting there in the background and addressing those as they came in. So just winding down now, we've had 4 previous webinars this year to today's, and you can see the topics there. As I said before, our next webinar in June is in fact going to be on Pims interface management and how you bring interface points together and interface requests and contractors, dealing with contractors to make sure that you don't end up with square holes being tried to accommodate round pegs. So that will be in June, and that will follow on because the underlying architecture of Pims interface management uses the workflow methodology. For those of you that might be based in the Houston area, our next mixer is going to be in July, and our next breakfast seminar will be in August. Natalia and our colleague Arvid Marcus will also be at the AACE annual meeting in Toronto next month, representing Omega and available to talk about any of our products and services. So thank you very much for attending. If you want to keep up to date on what's happening here, just go to omega.no/US. At the end of this seminar, we'd appreciate you completing the survey that you'll see. It helps us continue to enhance these webinars, make them more appropriate, make sure the timing and content is right, etc. But for now, that's it. Thank you again.